do get better.
Here we are, in the age of quarantine, social distancing, and universal masking. What could we really use in 2020? Well, I contend what we could really use is a nice dose of Bill and Ted, reminding us to be excellent to each other, and to party on, dudes. And you're in luck, because Bill and Ted Face the Music is hitting theaters next week. In honor of that, and my anticipation for what I'm hoping to be a great, fun comedy that lets us just enjoy entertainment, I wanted to take a step back in time and take a look at one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But before we get to that, please like the video, share it with your friends on social media websites, and consider subscribing to the channel. That's the best way to help out a new content creator on YouTube, gain traction in the algorithm, and reach more folks. And now, on to the video.
Excellent!
When Bill and Ted hit the scenes in 1989, it was towards the end of the period of kind of these teenage comedies that we saw a lot of during the 80s, particularly those dealing with time travel. You had things like Peggy Sue Got Married, you had Back to the Future, lots of stuff like that was floating around in pop culture. And we saw a whole new take on it through Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It was definitely in the category of one of those quintessential stoner humor movies. Our two heroes are bumbling fools who are about to flunk out of school and be separated forever, thus dooming the human race. Because Wild Stallions, of course, was going to write the music that united not only humanity, but all life on the world, and even in the universe, as Rufus, played so superbly by George Carlin, tells us at the beginning of the film. It treated us to so many references to pop culture at the time, whether it is when Bill and Ted are talking to Socrates, whether it's Rufus bringing it up, or anything throughout the film. Every little beat of this was reasonably well planned. It gave us all kicks into just what the modern culture was back in 1989. And at the end of the day, it was a feel-good, fun movie that allowed us to laugh at ourselves through Bill and Ted.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Yes, indeed, my friends, strange things were afoot at the Circle K. And that's a line that has stuck in pop culture. You hear references to it, people quote it all the time. It's part of how this movie has really sunk itself into our collective consciousness, even today in 2020, 31 years later. Many television shows and other movies have continued to reference Bill and Ted's over the years. I can't even count how many have riffed on just the title of the movie itself, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Most of the time that's been done in television show titles and things like that, but you also see references to it in various movies over the years because it was a movie that we remember. And lines like this they're a big part of why we remember Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. The scene that really caused that line, what of course was the arrival of Bill and Ted from a few hours later, showing up at the Circle K with Rufus and the original Bill and Ted. And there's this great interaction between the two Bills and Teds where, they're proving to each other that they are one and the same. It's really them from the future, and they give themselves advice on what they're supposed to do over what's about to become their excellent adventure in order to do something so silly as pass their history class. Again, the setup for the movie is simple, and it's simple, and that's why it works. we're willing to accept the idea that there are time traveling phone booths and that these two goofs are going to run around and collect characters from history. We get to see a lot of fun humor with Bill and Ted throughout the movie by making them the men out of time. They go back to the Napoleonic Wars with Rufus and inadvertently drag Napoleon back with them.
Gentlemen, we're history.
But this has been a most unusual day. Dad, it's Napoleon. The short dead dude from our history review.
To me, the scenes that follow here, where they're around collecting these various people from history, and all these men out of time moments that occur here. Again, lots of fun because you're seeing the sort of the pop culture look of 1989 into those times in the past. And that, I mean, it's a bit of a trope where you've got this anachronism, or the man out of time, where he just doesn't understand what's going on. But they do it really well in Bill and Ted. Whether it is observing that they didn't get carded and then making the ridiculous remark, hey, we got to remember this place, when they order a beer in the Old West and collect Billy the Kid. Whether it be when they have gone to ancient Greece and they look Socrates up in the history book, and the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing, which Bill and Ted say, hey dude, that's us. and then they bring the 80s into the periods that they're in as well. In order to recruit Socrates, Bill tells Socrates, all we are is dust in the wind. And Socrates has the hysterical response in ancient Greek, of course, that like sands through the hourglass, these are the days of our lives. And it's moments like these of just light-hearted callbacks to the world at large that are some of the things that just make this movie so great. Dropping those in, those moments of current day all throughout the movie really connect the viewer to the ridiculous scenarios that we're seeing on screen. And it's a big reason why this movie has become such a cult classic. And it still has a following to this day, despite being over 30 years old. You see Bill and Ted zip around, collect a few more historical characters. They have this fun moment with Henry VIII, and he's, says that he's going to put him in the Iron Maiden, which, of course, to Bill and Ted means a great metal band whom they love. And then, of course, execute them bogus. These moments endear Bill and Ted to the viewer and give you sort of this lighthearted take about how these 80s stoners would react to these various times in history. Get the montage of collecting the rest of the historical figures, including Abraham Lincoln, Sigmund Freud, Genghis Khan, and Beethoven. All these folks they ended up going with for the final movie. There were originally a lot of other potential historical characters that might have been in the movie, and the writer and director Ed Solomon talked about that in a few interviews over the years. So, originally Napoleon was going to be Hitler, but then they realized that was just a really bad idea. Good choice, Ed. Among other people, so they collect this whole group of folks. And then the writing does a really cool reversal of the experience that Bill and Ted have been having throughout the movie by making the historical figures the men out of time. There's a fun scene where each of these people gets to see San Dimas of 1989, and they, of course, are having difficulties, varying degrees of difficulties adapting to what's around them.
After the report, we'll time travel back to 2 days ago, steal your dad's keys, and leave them here. Where? I don't know. How about behind that sign? That way, when we get here now, they'll be waiting for us. See? Whoa, yeah!
And that really exemplifies some of the brilliance in the writing of this film. No. Brilliance in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. No, I mean it. Time travel movies have a problem because time travel itself offers the opportunity to fix whatever problems may be happening within the movie. And instead of trying to find clever ways to create problems that made it so that the time travel couldn't be the ultimate solve for everything, Bill and Ted instead fully embraced it. They used it to its full advantage and created their solutions with the time travel itself. Instead of avoiding it, they embrace it. And it's one of the things that makes this movie just so fun. And in many ways, dare I say, timeless. Using the time travel to get themselves out of the corner the writing backed themselves into was fine. It was fun, and it was in the spirit of this movie. One of the really big reasons why it still persists to this day as a cornerstone, at least in a niche, of our pop culture even in 2020.
I don't think it's gonna work. No? Triunfo Napoleon.
A lot of critics said they didn't think this was going to work, but it did. Everybody enjoyed this movie. Was it dumb? Was it a stoner movie? Was it not particularly an art piece of cinematic history? Sure. This thing was not intended to be Citizen Kane. It was never meant to be Citizen Kane. No one ever suggested that it was. What it is, though, is the kind of good fun, a break from the everyday, and a time to enjoy ourselves. In 1989, as the Cold War was closing, that was something that the populace embraced at the time. And I assert that's something the populace will indeed embrace again today. Reports are that Bill and Ted Face the Music, which launches next week, is going to be in the same vein. It's going to be a fun movie. It's going to be something that the people having hard times today are going to embrace. Is it going to be a billion-dollar movie? No, of course not. We may never have another billion-dollar movie again. But I do think that Bill and Ted is going to see some success. I don't believe it's going to lose money, and I think that a lot of people are going to really appreciate the break that it gives us from our everyday lives. And I would tell you that's something that we sorely, sorely need today in the world of 2020. I'm going to close the video with a very famous quote from Abraham Lincoln that I think encapsulates exactly what Bill and Ted is and what it hopefully will be when we see Bill and Ted Face the Music next week.
Be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes!
If you've enjoyed this trip back in time with me, please do like the video, share it with your friends on social media, and consider subscribing to the channel. That's one of the best ways for a new creator like myself on YouTube to gain traction within the algorithm and continue to reach a wider audience. Thank you for watching this long, and I hope to see you again on the next video.